Good day, everyone. I am back. I haven't been doing a video for the last 3 weeks, and I explained it on the community post. Time is marching on. Jesus is coming. Today I'm discussing the Queen's 70th reign versus Daniel's 70th week, 2022. I've done a video in 2018 after the 70 years. That, of course, is from 1948 to 2018. The word says that, of course, is Israel. After 70 years, I will visit you again. And now, my thought was it would be 2020, 2021, of course, that did not occur. However, the Queen's reign, 70th reign, is a significant one. This is Daniel's 70th week, 2022. And when does the 70th week occur? When will it occur? The 70th week will not occur during Passover, Pentecost, or anything, or any other day. That is scheduled for the Jubilee cycles. The Daniel 70 week is a Jubilee cycles, and I've done the Jubilee cycles with them. But most of you still hold on, either it's any day or during another feast. However, that is not the case. The next first to be fulfilled is Feast of Trumpets. 70 is a very important number. 70 people from Ham, Shem, and Japheth populate the earth. Yes, 70 of his sons populate the earth. That is why there's 70 nations. 70 people went into Egypt as well. And that is from Israel. But there is a promise made there. Jesus said, God said, their offspring, Jacob, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob's offspring, especially Jacob, and of course the Lord fell on Jacob. His offspring will be like the sand of the sea and the stars of the sky. And God scattered them into every nation, So sit down and enjoy this video. History is very important. I love history, and if you don't like history, please listen to it for a change. It's not boring, it's very interesting. So let's go to the subject of the day. Now the Queen, of course, the Queen's line does come from David. Is there a king still sitting on the throne of Judah? The Queen's royal descendants is from King David. I'm not going to discuss this with you. I'm going to include that with you, and you can look at the timeline from Adam until King Hezekiah. That's where the line was cut off. From there, the lines were cut off. So there were no more sons then there from that line there. So that, of course, is from Zedekiah. Now, of course, then it followed through the kings of Ireland, kings of Scotland, and then finally from Britain. So I'll include that for you. Queen's 70th reign versus Daniel's 70 week. Here is what we have. In Isaiah 23, 15, 17, there is a 70-year prophecy about Tyre, one of the commercial capitals of the ancient world. This was fulfilled in history, and the system of Tyre then was relocated. And then Jeremiah 25:11 verse 12, there is a prophecy about Babylon ruling over a number of nations, including Judah, for a period of 70 years. And the word then says concerning Jeremiah 29:10, that is after the period of 70 years, they would return back to Israel. Daniel read the prophecy in Jeremiah, and that is where he started to fast and pray. And that is what Daniel became famous for. For thus saith the Lord, that after 70 years be accomplished at Babylon, I will visit you and perform my good work towards you in causing you to return to this place. That, of course, is Israel. That is in Israel. And I do have a video after 70 years are completed. That, of course, is 14 May 2018. I will visit you. And I believe it is this year. And there we can look at the teaching on the kings, the good kings and the bad kings. And then there's also another interesting, that is from 22 minutes on, that is, let me see there. Just a little bit further down. We are all from the tribe of, each and every one of us are from one of these tribes. And that is a fact. And you can also read about that if you're interested in that. Yeah, so let's carry on to back to the notes. Yeah, and the question is, does the throne of David exist today on earth? If so, where can it be found? Genesis 49 verse 10 says, the scepter shall not depart from Judah until Shiloh, the Messiah, Jesus Christ, Yeshua, comes. My dog's name is Shiloh. His name is Shiloh. I got Shiloh in 2015, not 2017. That is just when I believed that Jesus would come, but of course not. And then I called in Shiloh until Jesus comes. We are told that David's seed or his descendants would rule or have dominion over Israel. This could be fulfilled in any tribe of Israel. The name given to Jacob by God, compare, of course, Genesis 32:28 with 35:10. We are specifically told that God would establish his throne of David's kingdom forever over Israel in his son Solomon. 2 Samuel 7:12-13 says, I will set up yours, that's for David's seed after you, who will come from your body, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. Of course, Jesus will sit them on the throne during the millennial reign in David's place. David, of course, will be the prime minister of Israel. 2 Chronicles 13:5, the Lord God of Israel gave the dominion over Israel to David forever, to him and his sons. And Psalm 89 verse 4, your seed, David's seed, I will establish forever and build up your throne to all generations. When Christ returns, he will take over and sit down on an existing throne of David here on earth. We can compare that with Luke 1 verse 32. Until the last king of Judah, of course Zedekiah, the descendants of David ruled as kings over the house of Judah. The house of Judah consisted of the tribes of Judah, Levi, and a part of Benjamin. They are the Jews and are called Jews today in the Bible. So if you speak of the Jews, it's not Israel, it is Jesus' brethren we're talking about, which is Judah. Yeah, but the Babylonians killed all the sons of Zedekiah and placed Zedekiah in captivity. There there has never arisen since then a descendant of David to rule as king over the house of Judah, the Jews. Today the state of Israel is not ruled by a king. Where then is the throne of David today? In which country do we find the descendants of David ruling as king? Yeah. Now the prophet Jeremiah, God appointed Jeremiah to commission Jeremiah to uproot the throne of David, but also to plant it. Now Jeremiah lived at a time when the Babylonians enslaved the house of Judah. King Zedekiah was captured. God gave Judah the commission to uproot the throne of David, but also to plant it. As I said earlier, Jeremiah 1:10, I have this day set you over the nations and over the kingdoms to root out and to pull down, to destroy and to throw down, to build and to plant. God gave Jeremiah prophecy regarding the kingship of a throne of David, which was to be transferred from the nation or the house of Judah to the house of Israel. The house of Israel then is the northern kingdom that consisted of descendants from the other sons of Israel or Jacob, including Joseph and his sons Ephraim and Manasseh. It has been taken into captivity by the Assyrians. Of course, most of these 10 tribes are not lost. They escaped to different nations of the world, New Zealand, Australia, to America, where you find the Red Indians, to every island basically. They escaped to island. We don't keep talking about Ireland as every island. Ireland as well, Scotland, Britain, to Europe, where it is today. Everywhere you find the Israelites. They are not lost at all. Yes, there's Deuteronomy 64, you can read it there yourself, that God scattered Israel. That, of course, is the blessings and the cursings. If they will fulfill the blessings, that will happen to them. But if not, that is what will happen opposite. And God literally scattered Israel to every corner of the earth and multiplied them like the sand of the sea and the stars in the sky. And each and every one of you watching this video, you are an Israelite. I'm serious. Let me put it to you, if you die, when you die, you will either go through one of the gates of one of the sons of Israel. Yeah, I'm serious. Father God has a ring on his finger of Israel. Jesus has a breastplate. Now I would be very jealous if my father just make a fuss about one of my brothers. Certainly I would. And that is what Father revealed to me, that most of the people are all Israelites. And that is why he's wearing a ring on his finger. That is why you will go through one of the gates, pass through one of the gates of baptism after you die. I'm serious. And many people do not know this. You know, the Gentiles is the Israelites, people. Yeah. More than Ephraim and Manasseh, it has been taken into captivity by the Assyrians more than 100 years prior to Jeremiah. They never returned to the promised land and have become known as the lost tribes. Even during the time of Jesus, the disciples, the apostles, they knew who the lost tribes of Israel was. And they went out to minister to them. Jeremiah 33, 17, 21, 26. David shall never lack a man to sit on the throne of the house of Israel. He shall always have a son to reign on his throne. David's descendants will be rulers of the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jeremiah was to be instrumental in uprooting the throne over the house of Judah and to plant it over the house of Israel before it was said that David's descendants were to rule over Israel or Jacob. That is, any of the descendants of Jacob. That include the house of Judah, of course. However, from the time Jeremiah's prophecy, David's descendants were to rule over the house of Israel, which excluded the house of Judah. I hope that is clear. Jeremiah uprooted the throne of David over the house of Judah by bringing the last remaining descendants of King Zedekiah. Now, when Nebuchadnezzar entered Judah, King Zedekiah escaped, and they followed him, and they overpowered him, and they killed all the princes, they killed all his sons, and even Zedekiah's own 2 eyes were placed up. And after Jeremiah warned Zedekiah, if he will obey, he will need to suffer like that. He will live. But of course he did not obey. Yeah. So his daughters, that compared Jeremiah 43:6 to that, of course, to Ireland, where some of the lost tribes of the house had settled. I'm serious. As I said to you, those lost tribes, they're all over the world. And these 2 daughters married, one of the married king of Scotland, and then also of one of Ireland. According to historical records of Ireland, one daughter, that is Tia, married the Irish king who was a descendant of Judah, but not of David. The king was not of David, but he was an Israelite. It is this way through in this way, through the sons of the king of daughter Zedekiah, Jeremiah planted, he uprooted the David's throne room, and then he was instructed to plant it. That's a prophecy that Jeremiah received. He planted the throne of David and the scepter of Judah over the tribe of the house of Israel in Ireland. Now, that, of course, is not the true house of Israel today. As I said, there's just a part of it. Israel is scattered all over the world, even South Africa. Africa got many Israelites, and you find even the traditions of the Xhosas, they still doing that what Israel did with animal sacrifices today. I'm serious. The historical records confirm that subsequent kings of Ireland knew that they were descendants of King David. Now, Zedekiah's other daughter, Scotta, married into a noble family and gave the name Scotland to the land where they settled. The throne of David was to be transferred 3 times, according to Ezekiel, before Christ would return. And says, right? And of course, that did occur. The throne of David was to transfer 3 times before Christ would return and occupy. Ezekiel used the words, overthrown, overthrown. I will make it the crown. Compare verses 26, overthrown. Now the crown or throne of David was overthrown first in Judah and transferred or planted in Ireland. And then the throne or rule of David's descendants was later overthrown in Ireland, transferred to Scotland, where some of the tribes of the house of Ireland had been settled. Now my mother's family, her family was from Ireland, and my grandfather, of course, he was Dutch, and He married an Irish lady. The throne room or rule David's descendants was later overthrown in Ireland and then transferred to Scotland, where some of the tribes of the House of Ireland had settled. It was transferred to the royal house of the descendants of David in Scotland, to the offspring of Scotta, the other daughter of Zedekiah. Now, thirdly, it was overthrown again in Scotland and transferred to England, where the Stuarts, a line of David, had settled around 1600 in the person of James I. And in addition, the descendants of Ephraim and Manasseh, to put something there. But since most people say if Britain is Ephraim, it's not. Manasseh is Ephraim, and Ephraim became America because America is the younger sons. Now the sons of Joseph had settled there. Now the subsequent royal rulers in England, all descendants from King David, and so the throne of David is today in England. Queen Elizabeth sits on the throne, and Prince Charles' firstborn, that of course is William, is expected to sit on it soon. Will it happen? I believe the Queen will still be there after 70th reign, and that of course will be, if you've seen the clip, the insert, that will of course happen in June, 2nd of June, over 4 days. That of course she came to power, I think in February 2nd, that is 1952, when she became queen, and when she sat on a throne. But the Jubilee years are always on, the festive season is then always during June, when it is good weather in England. Yeah, nowhere else could the existing throne of David be today but in England. It is not the state of Israel, as I said earlier, which is part of the house of Judah, and is not vacant either. Jesus Christ will occupy it when he returns. See Luke 1 verse 32, Isaiah 9, 6, 7. He had not occupied it so far. In addition, it is a throne here on earth, not somewhere in heaven. Christ is from the house of Judah, will come back to this earth, and it says that he will then sit on the throne of his father David here on earth. Jesus will once again establish rule over Israel in Jerusalem. And you can compare Zechariah 1, 17, 2 and 12. Remember, the scepter would not depart from Judah. So now I'm going to discuss then this last overview of Daniel's prophecy. I'm not going to be too long. I discussed that in quite a few videos. This will just give you the summary here. When Daniel received the prophecy of Daniel 9 in 538 BC, the Jewish nation was in captivity in Babylon, and Jerusalem and the temple were in ruins. The prophecy has two focuses, and the first one focus is the city Jerusalem. Daniel prayed for Jerusalem, Daniel 9:18, and Gabriel told him that 70 weeks were decreed for the city. Daniel 9 verse 9 verse 24 says 70 weeks are determined upon Israel. 69 of those weeks have been fulfilled, which is 808. Of course, that is 483 years. 483 years, and 7 of those years must still be fulfilled. Of course, Jesus was cut off. He died in the middle of the week. Yeah, now Jerusalem will be rebuilt 924, 925, but Daniel also had to hear that Jerusalem would be again destroyed. Yes, Jerusalem would be again destroyed 926. The other focus of the prophecy is the Messiah, the Prince. He will appear at the end of the 69. That, of course, is not... Many people say it is the Antichrist. Not the Antichrist, it's the false prophet. The false prophet ruled first. Read it over and over. Revelation 13. The first beast is the Antichrist. The second beast is the false prophet. It's not a pope. Icona. It's not a pope. Yeah. Now, the false prophet rules first on behalf of the Antichrist. Yes. And that's prophecy is when the Messiah, the Prince, he will appear at the end of the 69th week, 483 years, but will be cut off, which means he will be killed. That's because Jesus was killed. Now, there are three sub-periods. The 70 weeks are subdivided into three sub-periods. 7 weeks. 7 weeks is 49 years. And where Jerusalem would have been built in troublous times. And during that time, the first decree went out at 456. It's not 457, 458, and that is where they misled us with 2 years. It's actually 456 is the end of the Jubilee year. The decree in the year of the Jubilee year that the decree was made. Yeah, and it's during that time that the work was stopped. And then Artaxerxes made another decree during that time. During that 7-week period, that's 49 years. And 445, he made that decree. Yeah, he made that decree in 445. And 445. Yeah. And that was the second decree. It's insurance policy to carry on with the work. It was not the actual decree. The actual decree was 456 people. And then 62 weeks later, Jesus came on the scene. That is 483 years later. And the last week, 7 years, that last week, 7 years, all the week is reserved for after a long period of 49 plus 434 gives us 483 years, implying that the purpose of the long period of 480 is simply to locate the last 7 years in time. And the last week is there for the real purpose and focus of the 490 years. And the purpose of the 490 years, the period of 490 years, is it's a 49-year cycle, not a 50-year cycle. The period of 490 years has specific purpose. Gabriel announced 6 glorious goals for the 70th week, including to make an end to sin and to bring in an everlasting righteousness, Daniel 9:24. Now, the purpose of the 490 years, therefore, is to solve the sin problem. God is going to make an end of sin during the 7 years. Probably the whole human race. God gave these goals to Israel to fulfill, and he gave Israel 490 years to fulfill these goals. Since the last 7 years are the real purpose and the core of its prophecies, these 6 goals will be fulfilled during the last 7 years. That will begin October the 27th. Yeah, October 27th, Feast of Trumpets, 2022 people. Yeah, now many of you believe it will be September, but that is the 6th month. You count for 7 months from the first month, 7 moon months from April. April, The first is the first month. Then, of course, it's May, June, July, August, September is 6. October is the 7th month, not September. Thank you. Please do subscribe. Please like the video. I do pray for you every day, people. Or maybe not all personally. Sometimes I open the subscription, all the subscriptions, and I do pray for people individually, and that is what I do. Yes, and sometimes I do receive a word for certain people, and then I contact them individually. Be blessed. Love you all. See you next time.